Okay, it says we're live, so I'm gonna trust it. Hi everyone. So this is Office Hours. If you haven't experienced Office Hours before, then you're in for a real treat because this is the time where I talk with people about anything that they want to know about. So I just answer whatever question that you have. Sorry, I'm kind of doing a couple other things while trying to explain to everybody what office hours are. I just want to make sure that it's actually working, and it looks like it is, so that's good. So yeah, I give priority to people who are in the Zoom chat with me. If they have questions, then I answer those first, and then if we run out of those, then I pull up the Discord and answer questions on the Discord. And then if we run out of those, then we never run out of those anymore. So I'm not going to worry about it. All right, cool. So anybody on the Zoom right now have any questions that they want to ask?
Hi, Kailash here from
Hi there.
India.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can hear you. Hi.
So a few days ago, I tagged you in a tweet where I posted a code snippet. It was a pretty long for the tweet, and you recommended me to connect on the office hours. So I will just try to find that tweet and share you. So I just wanted to know your views on how can we optimize that particular React component.
Yeah, I sort of remember this. If you can find a link to that tweet, that would help a lot.
Yeah, I got it here. I will just send you.
Okay, great. And I can share my screen. Did you say you just sent it or you're sending it now?
Just sending.
Okay.
Sent.
Um,
I sent on the Zoom
oh,
chat.
in the Zoom
Sorry,
chat. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Here we go. Okay, so we've got a bunch of code and you're curious how I would refactor it. And I do remember saying that's a good question for office hours. So good. Let me, let's see if we can zoom in on this. There we go. Okay, so the purpose, so this is a React Native thing, but I don't think my inexperience in React Native is going to present a big problem. We've got a bunch of styles at the bottom. It looks like you have a couple of
Simple
inputs.
login form it is basically.
Okay, great. And so you're just asking for like general refactor improvements.
Yeah, when I saw this code, when I wrote this code, I felt like this was doing too many things at a time, and I just wanted your perspective since I read one of your articles where you mentioned about components. Obviously, React always has mentioned about components, but I was trying to understand how I can make this better. So, just wanted your thoughts on this.
Gotcha. Okay, great. I actually like from on the outset, I don't see a whole lot of problems with what like with what it is. It actually looks pretty like typical React code here. I don't see like the common problems that I'd see. I know some people would probably say, hey, if you're doing forms, you should use some sort of forms abstraction for that. And I don't always agree with that. I think managing state the way that you are is probably fine. I'm not sure what a pressable is. I guess it turns the icon into a pressable thing.
Just a
So
button so that we can click it.
yeah, okay, that makes sense. Sorry, I don't do React Native, so
Yeah, I understand that.
um so login. Okay, so this might be something. Both of these, I typically avoid booleans for this type of state, and I have a blog post about this, so that might be helpful. Yeah, stop using is loading booleans. Same thing applies, and I'll paste this in the Discord chat. But yeah, that might be one thing that you could take a look at. So it looks like the login gets set when they click
When
on the
we have
login.
entered the username password, then I click on login, and that's when we show the login animation, since the API is getting called.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then, like, let's assume that the API fails. Then you need to set it back uh, to false. But then you might want to show some sort of warning or error to indicate why it failed. So this blog post will go in a little bit deeper on why using booleans to manage that type of state is not super great, and it's better to
Okay,
use like an enum. So yeah, give that blog post a read. But
sure.
other than that, like, this looks great. I don't really see too much more I would recommend improving here.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for showing up and asking. Anybody else have questions for office hours this morning or afternoon or evening or whatever time it is for you? Nothing in the Zoom. All right, sweet. Feel free to interrupt me because you do get priority for being in the Zoom. But I'm just going to go through the chat here as high up as I can go. Yeah, there we go. That was the last time. Do. Yeah, I do need to make a couple more GIFs for goodbye and stuff. Fun ideas there. Here we go. All right. So Nick had this, there was actually a big, long discussion in the React Fundamentals channel that I remember reading through that. And sorry, let me just read through this here really quick. Yeah, basically the question is, why can't we just use bracket or curly braces props or curly braces class name? Yeah, so this is actually slated for JSX2. The short answer is this is just not supported by the parser. RFC. Maybe. I know that they've got here we go. Object shorthand notation. I think that's probably what it is. Yep, here we go. So this feature is simply not supported by JSX, the JSX parser. So that's literally the only reason you can't do this. Is because it was never implemented. So the alternative to saying, like, let's say that we wanted to have a prop called item and we wanted its value to be value, then it would be nice to just be able to do curly braces and it's called item and its value is value. And that would be nice. And the React team acknowledges this. But actually, I'm not sure if that's what the proposed solution is. I think actually they might do it without the curly braces. Let me see. I feel like it was actually without the curly braces was the actual proposal. No, I can't remember. Because right now, actually, if you do this without any curly braces or anything, that will say this has an A prop and it is true. That's what the current syntax, so that's how the current syntax works. But yeah, you could read through this discussion, but I'm pretty sure that, like, this is absolutely something that will maybe happen someday. It's something that the React team has considered. It's kind of a short answer to your question, but that's why it's just not supported by the JSX parser. Okay, so I do understand the spread operator is needed. I just want to know why. Yeah, and that's pretty much why. But I do want to clarify something that this what you want it to do is not the same as what this does. Okay, those two things are different. They do different things. So what this is going, what you want this to do is you want it to, here, let me bump this up a little bit so everybody can see without trouble. And I don't need the preview. How do I get this thing off? Boy, they keep on changing this UI on me. Go away. I can't remember. Oh, there it is. Okay, So what you are wanting is you want to have class name equals class name. And so this is the syntax that's not supported, and it may or may not be that syntax in the future. I think it might be that in the future. I'm not sure, but in any case, it's not supported today. And so the suggestion is, okay, well then, here, let me leave that there. Then we're going to do ... class name, but that's not the same. If you wanted to do that, then you'd have to say spread an object that has the class name as a property. And here, it might be even more instructive to open up the Babel REPL and see what it does with this code. So let me grab that. We'll paste that in here. And I don't know why it's not compiling that for me. Come on. There we go. Okay. So let's take a look at, let's get rid of this. And so the suggestion is, okay, well, if you want to have that feature, rather than doing this, you just do a spread. That is not the same thing. That's what I'm trying to communicate here. What this is it's passing class name as the props argument. Okay. Now let's see what it's supposed to be, and we'll compare those two options there. So this is what you actually have to do, is put it in an object and then spread that object. So what that's going to do is it's going to take all the properties of the object and stick it in the props position here. So in the first example, we're passing it class name as props. That is, the props object is class name, which is invalid because class name it presumably is a string, and you can't pass a string as props. Whereas in this case, we're passing an object, which is valid, an object that has class name. So that was just this is actually the reason why I wanted to make sure this was asked, to make sure that it, or to just clarify that if you want to take an object of props, then you spread that object of props. And if you want to create that object as you're spreading it, then you need to make sure that you actually create the object with that notation. And if this is all confusing and you're like, what the syntax is that? Then here, let's do a third one just to simplify this. That's props 3. Okay, see, UI2 and UI3 are functionally equivalent. They're just different ways of writing it that maybe hopefully kind of helps make a little bit of sense there. So anyway, yeah, JSX2, maybe that'll happen eventually. This was posted in 2016 though. So JSX2 has been a thing for almost as long as I've been using React. So like a year short of that. So yeah, like it may happen, it may not anytime in the future. So
Hey Kent, this is Rajiv.
yeah, what's up?
I have a quick question actually. So I was looking at your course actually. So you don't have any mention of Redux anywhere actually. So do you think going forward actually for a production scale application, we don't need Redux at all?
Yes, I think that precisely. Sorry, let me just finish up with this really quick. I'm just gonna put that there. Yeah, so I don't think applications need Redux. Most applications don't need Redux. I have some thoughts about state management on my blog. Yeah, a huge majority of React applications do not need Redux, and so I don't teach it. So, yep, that's my thoughts on that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, and we had some more comments on that. Nice, thank you. Very good. Yeah, nice. Talking about like ASTs and stuff. Good stuff. Okay, we're just having a conversation about this stuff, which is great. This is really good. This is one of the reasons why the Discord is so awesome, is because you have this cross-pollination of ideas and explanations, and everybody gets better. as we go through this stuff. So that's awesome. Super helpful. Woo! Huge shout out. Thank you, Amin. All right. Do we have office hours? Yes, we do. Hello. That was you. Okay.
Actually, the reason I posted there on your YouTube channel, it says half an hour before actually.
Oh, really? Whoops.
All of them actually.
Sorry
Sorry.
about that. Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks, King Daro. Yeah. Great. There we go. Okay, let's see what other questions we've got. Okay, so this is some feedback. I don't know if they're watching right now, but this is great feedback to post if you go to Epic React Dev at the top. Oh, I guess you have to be logged in. I guess that makes sense. But if you're logged in, then there is this little I'm not logged in right now. I need to log in. But there's this little feedback button. Just click the feedback button and you'll be off to the races. And if you are not logged in or whatever, then you can go to the FAQ page and there is an email right there that you can use to send all of your feedback. Because I'm not the product manager or anything. And I just, or even the team who builds this stuff. So I just shuffle all of your feedback off to them. So if you want to skip the middleman who is slow, that is me, then just email the team directly. Okay, great. If you're using a button to do multiple API calls, either in parallel or one after the other, can you catch this with MSW? For example, could be getting the price of a product at a different vendor implemented MSW for the first time today. Yay. Yeah, you can totally manage that with MSW. I'm not sure what you mean by catch this, but yeah. MSW will handle any network request that you make. And in the future, hopefully it will also handle WebSockets. That's the plan. So that's exciting. Look forward to that. Yeah, enums with syntax. Can you elaborate what enums are? So yeah, great question, Raphael. Enums are actually a programming concept, and some languages support enums as like a primitive value of the language. But yeah, we could actually probably just Wikipedia this thing because it's a pretty common thing. Yeah, short for enumerated type. Yeah, in the R programming language, it's called a factor. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so it's basically a set of named values. Yeah, I'll just read this thing. Named values called elements, members, enumerable, or enumerables, or enumerators of that type. So an example of this, actually in my blog post, I show is loading. So it's basically, we have our status, and we have 3 different, or actually 4 different status values. So this would be our enum. We have rejected, resolved, pending, and idle. And typically, when you're talking about enums, you're going to have an object that has properties. So here, did I not do that in here? I may or may not have done that in here. Yeah, so I show xstate. That's kind of fun. Yeah, I guess I didn't show it in here. But yeah, often in JavaScript, you'll have an object that has all of those possible state values. Sorry, I'm thinking, I know that I've got an example of this. Probably in the probably in a state reducer post. Probably types. Oh, I was just right there. I saw it and then I jumped away from it. Here we go. Action types. So this is basically enums right here. So you have toggle is toggle, on is on, off is off. The value itself doesn't matter. What matters is the key, and that it's just unique. But this is just how you would implement enums in raw JavaScript. Enums are actually supported by TypeScript. So if you're using TypeScript, then you can use enums like just based on the actual language. So here's what an enum looks like in TypeScript. You have numeric, also string value. It really doesn't matter what the values are as much as just that they are distinct. So you could also have a set of enums that are symbols, which are totally 100% unique. But yeah, the benefit of this is especially when we're talking about like our is loading Boolean, is that this status value can only be one thing at a time. So your state is only in one place at a time, and it makes it hard to be in invalid states. I actually have another blog post about this here, and I just realized I'm not sharing these blog posts. So let me share this. I mentioned that. And what was I just about to talk about? Oh, shoot. There was another blog post. And I've forgotten what I was going to, shoot, what was I going to share? Anyway, yeah, that's going to bother me forever now. Yeah, so the value of this is that it allows, yeah, impossible states. That's what it was. Sorry, I knew I couldn't continue until I figured out what I was talking about. But yeah, so it helps you avoid impossible states. For example, if we just use an is loading Boolean, you might also have an is error Boolean and an is success Boolean. And if you have all three of these Booleans that are just detached from each other, then you could wind up in a state where you are loading, you have success, and you have error. Or you have success and error and you're not loading or whatever. Those are impossible states. This should never happen, but it is possible because of the way that you're managing your state. So the big benefit of using enums to manage that type of state, so enums in combination with this kind of pattern, is that it allows you and enables you to avoid those types of impossible states. This is why state machines are awesome, and XState is great. So definitely something to look into, something I'll probably add to Epic React eventually as well. So great question. Thanks, Raphael. Okay, sweet. See what other questions we have. Do you use implicit props passing via React Children map? What cases for? So I don't actually use React Children map very often, but there is one place where I do it. And that is if I want to make a compound component that I don't need it to be structurally flexible. So an example of a component like that, and then I'll show you what the code looks like. Reach UI, reach.tech, here we go. I think their accordion does it this way. But yeah, so you have these compound components. Here's the accordion, and directly below that is the accordion item. It doesn't make any sense to put anything else under there, so it is a direct descendant. And so with that, the accordion can use React Children map to map all of the accordion items. So that's a good example of this. I don't know if that's how they implement it, but just for the fun of it all, let's go see. Where's their GitHub source? There we go. Let's see how they implement it. Maybe they do children, or they could be using context. Just kind of depends. I know they've got a bunch of little utilities and abstractions that might make this harder to identify. Children or map. Yeah, I don't think that they're using React Children map, but I do have an example of this in the Advanced React Patterns workshop. Here we go. I think it's the second exercise, final O2 JS. Let's look at the extra credit. So here we go. React Children map. We take that children prop, and for each child, if it is a string, then we just ignore it. We pass it along. But if it's not, then we're going to clone it so we can pass along the on and toggle. So that's a use case for that, that type of use of React Children map. But like I said, I don't often use that utility. But yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing, is passing implicit props. It's for compound components. Great question. Curious about render thing or render list pattern. Yeah, so I actually do have a blog post about this also. Surprise. It is render props. what's going to happen to render props now that we have hooks? So the reason that render props got to be so awesome was because it made it easy to share logic so that you could separate concerns. But then React hooks comes around and makes it way easier to share logic and separate concerns. And so now it's like, okay, well, what's the use of render props? Because now I go from this weird render prop API to a hook, and like one of these is easier than the other, both on the eyes as well as like to combine with other things, and hooks are definitely way better. So, okay, so given that, why would we ever care to use render props again? And it is precisely for this reason mentioned. Where did that question go? Right here, by Baby Courageous. It is for like rendering specific thing. Actually, you know what? You're asking a different question, but I'll finish answering this one and then I'll answer your question. So there are some use cases for render props, and that is a good example of using React Virtualized, where React Virtualized actually has a render prop, and it is, so they create a virtual list for you, and they just say, hey, I'm going to render this row, so give me back the elements that need to be rendered for that row. So that's the use case for render props. There's actually React Virtual, which is a newer library that turns this into a hook as well, and I actually prefer that over render props or over the render prop API anyway. But there are definitely still some cases where it makes sense to expose a render prop where it says, hey, I'm going to render this thing. Tell me what you want out of it. So anyway, that's not the question that you asked, though. You were asking about the tic-tac-toe component, and let me show everybody that. It's in React Hooks, I think. And I think that's exercise 5, maybe. Maybe it's 6. I can't remember. Yeah, maybe it's 6. Or maybe it's 4. Yeah, here we go. So right in here, I have this function render square. So let's see. Let me think the easiest way. Probably I need to code stuff up. So let me pull that up. I'll just close all that. 04.js in the final. Okay. So what we're doing here, I actually didn't, no, never mind. I made a function called render square that will just render a button. And then yeah, this is called with an index. So then I can call select square and squares, whatever. So let's take a look at what this would look like if I did not do render square first. So we'll just get rid of all these. And in their place, I'll paste in all of these buttons. And then here I have to do, this will be 0, and this will be 0, and this will be 1. I'm not going to do this whole thing. Don't worry. We'll just do these 3. Okay, so if I do it that way, then I could keep on going forever on all of these. How easy would it be for me to make a typo and not notice? Pretty easy, right? And unless I had a full suite of tests, which I do actually have a suite of tests that test this, I would also have to make sure that I didn't, or that my test clicked on this button. So you basically would need a comprehensive test, which like you could argue yay or nay on whether that's useful. But the cool thing about using the function form is that I totally avoid that problem altogether. Like I'm not going to have a typo, or it's a lot harder to have a typo, because the important thing is that I have 2 numbers that are supposed to be the same, and if they're not, then I've got a bug. Okay, and it's just really easy to miss that. And so that's one of the reasons why I make this render square. I don't often use this pattern in my React code. I typically don't separate, okay, render this now, render that, render this, whatever. I typically just stick it all the JSX in place. But for this reason, I like to have this render square function. Now, another question people might ask is, okay, well, why don't you just make a box component? Because that's what we do, right? We make, or let's see, it's be a square component. when we have repeat JSX that we want, then we're just going to make a component out of it, pass it some props, and everything's good. And so you say, okay, well, let's take a look at what we need. We're going to need a select square, and we'll need index and squares. Okay. Well, that's just for the naive implementation. So in that case, I'm going to say square, and we'll have our select square and our index and our the squares. And yeah, that, like, I guess that works okay. That's all right. I don't mind that. But I don't really like the API a whole lot. So what I'd probably do if I were building this is I'd actually probably just say, honestly, this is probably the way I'd want to write this to have a nice API. Or here we'd just actually take all the props and we'd spread them all here. Now that's not a super useful component, but bear with me here. So if I did that, then I need to basically do my onClick and children would be something like this. And now I'm like no better off at all, not even a little bit, because I still have those two. So I either have a API that I don't really like, or I don't really solve the problem at all. And so like none of these is necessarily wrong. You just try them out and see what you like better. And for me, I really prefer just having this function right here and calling that. Like I said, I don't really do this a whole lot. Like this is, it's very rare that I will create a function like this just to save myself some repetition. But the reason that I'm doing it is so that I avoid some typo mistakes, because those two numbers do need to be the same. So you could also do some wacky math stuff and do some loops over things and whatever if you wanted to. So you'd have like map over 3 items in the array and then map over those to, like, you do a double map or something weird like that. And feel free to do that if that's the way you like to write it. But I'm a fan of this for this particular situation. So anyway, that was a lot of words, but in general, it's just like try out different things and use the one that makes the most sense to you. Okay, cool. There we go. Yes, this syntax is correct. You could totally do things this way. And Google thought I was talking to it. Hold on a second. My wife sent me a text. She's more important than you are, that's for sure. Not just kidding. We're all important, but I'm not just kidding. She's more important to me. Okay. Okay, cool. Is it good or bad practice to run effects based on state changes? That's actually what effects are for. Or would it be better to do something like this without the effects? Yeah, good question, Henry. You 100% never should do side effects inside the render function or inside the function body. You always do side effects in a use effect. So great question. 100% do it in a use effect. Do not do it in here. Use effects, the entire use effects entire existence is to synchronize the state of the world with the state of your app. And so doing a side effect based on a state change is like what it's for. So definitely do not do this ever. Okay, great. Is the stuff on Cypress on testing JavaScript still up to date? Yeah, so it's basically up to date. There's one really unfortunate thing that I had to do like 2 months after I updated testing JavaScript. And I will show you now. So it's in Cypress testing library. And if we go to the releases right here to our breaking change for 6.0 right here. this is the thing that we had to make a change to. If you want to dive into more of the reasoning for why, then you can look at some of the pull requests that went into this. But basically, we removed the fallback that retries chain queries because this was not idiomatic Cypress primarily. And so before, you were able to just say, okay, find this and then click on that and then find this and then click on that, which is sort of the way that the get command works. You can actually do that. But yeah, it's not proper, and there are problems that you can bump up against if you use that API. And so the solution is actually really easy. You simply stick psi in front of any time you use one of these commands, and then boom, you're done. Unfortunately, it's not that easy to update videos. So I am planning on updating this soon, but outside of that, I'm not going to be making any changes to that module. It works just fine. It's great. And so this is a pretty simple thing for you to make changes to. So I wouldn't be concerned about that. Okay, cool. Thank you, Arpan. I guess I should read that. Yep, that's the one. Whoops. Thank you. All right. Can you show us the example that explains the logical process when you pass a callback through a prop? Yeah, I'm not sure I understand your question, Zamir, but I will try to do my here. And actually, I'll just paste this here really quick. I'll try to do my best to answer the question. Oh, and I don't think I pasted that either. To answer the question that I think that you're asking. So we could probably do best in the Babel repo so we can see what the JavaScript looks like. So let's say you've got a component, we'll call it a button. We'll have our own button component. This is going to take props. And we're going to return a regular button, and we'll just forward the props along or whatever. And we'll have a class name my button. And then like you'd probably want to combine the props and whatever else, but we'll just stick with this for now. So now let's say that you want to make some UI that uses that button, and you want to pass an on click handler to that button. And here it's going to say hello. Okay, so and I'm going to call this my button just to make things even more clear. Okay, so here's my handle click cluck handle click function that I'm going to pass right here. Handle click. Okay, great. So and actually, you know what? I'm gonna let's see. We're just gonna add this to our 01 exercise. Console log UI. Okay, there we go. So we've got it actually running right here, and then we've got what it compiles to here. So that hopefully should help us as we go through this. So here we're creating our handle click function. We're creating our UI with React create element. We're passing it the element type that we want to create. This is the blueprint for the element that we're creating. And then we pass it the props that we want React to call our function with. So this on click handler, handle click. And then we pass it along the children. Okay, so when my button is called, you'll notice that my button is not being called by our code. We are not calling the my button component. Okay, and actually when we call this is also not calling the my button component. In fact, let's add a console log here to make sure that's the case. So hello. And then we go in here, and you'll notice we don't get a console log for hello at all. It is just yeah, we're just getting a console log for our UI. So just because you create an element doesn't mean that your function is going to get called. The function is only called when that element is going to be rendered. So that's a very important distinction. But what happens when you say, okay, let's render this thing to the page using React DOM.render, what happens is React says, okay, let me take this this element that you've created, which is just an object that has a props property. And I'm going to call the type function. So we'll say here, let's do stores global variable. There we go. And let me move this up a little bit. Here, we'll just go to console and bump it up. Okay, so we have temp1. Okay, so that is our UI. So I have temp1 as the UI that I've created, and I'll say type. And what React is going to do is it's going to say, okay, you've got this element. I'm trying to render it to the page. So I'm going to take its type. And because it's a function, I know it's a custom component. So I'm going to call it with the UI props. And that is going to get me some new UI. So this is going to be the UI that's returned from this element type. And with that, we're going to get that hello, because we had that console log in our code. Remember? Console log. Oh, well, boo on that thing. That wasn't helpful. Yeah, so you're going to get that console log of hello from this code right here. But then we're going to create a new element because that's the new UI we got. So if we look at new UI, now this has a type of string button. So it's not a type that React is going to call because it's not a function. And it has a props of class name, my button, children, hello, and on click is that function that we passed to our original props. So what happens here is we're saying, hey, React, I want to create an element called my button, and I want to pass it the prop on click called, and the on click value is going to be handle click. And so React is like, okay, cool. That sounds great. Let me give you back a React element, some UI. And so I'm going to set the type to that my button component that you're saying. So this is the type that you're creating. And then I'm going to create an object called props that will have all the props that I will call this type with when it's time for this thing to render. And so when it does render, React is going to say, okay, type, I'm going to call you, and I'm going to pass you the props that you should have so I can get the UI that you want to have rendered to the page. And it goes on, turtles all the way down. That's so you can use custom components that use other custom components. And so it simply forwards along the onClick that you called it with originally to the underlying type, to that underlying my button component. And then that my button component can do whatever it wants to with it. And in this case, it's just taking all of the prompts that it gets and forwards those along to the underlying button, which is why when we get down to here, we're created UI, this new UI that has a type of button, and the props has an on-click function here, which is the same function that we created in the first place. Hopefully that like sort of helped, but it's a couple of key takeaways is when you're using JSX, you're actually using the create element API, which I talk about in the first workshop of React, Epic React. And when you create an element, that's not when the that custom component is actually called. It's only called when you actually render it. And when it is called, it's called with the props that were passed to it. That's basically how that works. Hopefully that answers the question. And sure, I can paste this along with that. Here we go. There you go. Hopefully that was helpful. Okay, where are we now? Great, here we go. First time office hours viewer. Nice, welcome Ricardo. Got a first job as a senior front-end developer. Congrats. Any tips for your first day? Ooh, listen a lot more than you talk. Spend most of the day listening. And if you're worried that people are going to be like, oh, like he's supposed to be the senior, but he's not talking at all. Like you can communicate the fact that you're like, I just want to learn as much as I can today or for this first week or two. I have opinions and you can ask me for those opinions. But I just want to make sure I'm accumulating as much domain specific knowledge as I can so that my opinions are actually useful. So yeah, that definitely try to listen more than you talk for the first little while. And that'd be some feedback. Hopefully that helps. Congratulations. That's exciting. All the office hours times are on the office hours page, which it doesn't look like anybody's sent you there. So kcd.im/office hours, and you can find everything right there. I just do it 2 times a week. How do you select multiple code in VS Code? Yeah, I can answer that question. So if we've got like, function. If I had a bunch of these function keywords and I want to select them all, I can do Command D, and now I can select them all and be like the in front of all of my function names if I wanted to. You can also hold down, I think it's Option, or no, maybe it's Control. I can't remember. Oh yeah, it's Command. And now my cursor's in a bunch of places. So if you're like, I want to put right there and right there and right there, and go, wow. So fun little tip for you. Multiple cursors are the best. Mono versus multiple repos. Pros, cons. So I've never done, well, okay. Let me make sure that we're all on the same page. I have done both multi and mono repos. When I was at PayPal, I set up a mono repo for our component library. And boy, that was a pain, but it was like probably the best approach. For all of my, everything else I do, it's multiple repos. And I find them, I don't know, they're all just trade-offs. I don't have enough experience with mono repos to feel like I can really do them justice. I know that smart people really like mono repos. One of the big reasons why I am resistant toward mono repos for something like testing library, for example, because we have a lot of repos for testing library, different implementations and stuff, is because then you're not just mono repo, you're mono project. And so every single issue that somebody files about any one of the packages in there is like notifies everybody in the project, which would be super annoying for me to get emails about Vue testing library or Svelte testing library, because I have no bearing on those projects. My opinion doesn't matter in those projects, and I don't want to get those notifications. And so like from an open source standpoint, if I don't care about all of the projects, then it's really annoying to get those emails. I don't find that management of multiple repos is that big of a headache when you just have a few, like a dozen or so. I can imagine it'd be an enormous headache if you had hundreds, like Babel or something. But yeah, for like a work project, yeah, I don't know. I've never done like a at scale mono repo thing before, so I don't have too many legit opinions about that. Sorry. All right. Let's see about this question about refs. Yeah, okay. So we have this rich text editor. We're using Quill instance ref. And the problem is that when the ref gets assigned, we don't get a re-render. So the editor toolbar never gets the ref. Oh, I see. So yeah, so the editor toolbar needs the Quill instance, and you create this, but you, yeah, so you're passing that ref to the React Quill. And so this ref doesn't get assigned until after the render happens, and by then it's too late because the editor toolbar doesn't have access to it. So let's see. There are a couple of things that you could do. What I'd probably do is in your editor toolbar, instead of accepting the instance, have it accept the ref, and then you can have a React use effect that would run to reference that ref and do whatever you need to with it. I'm not sure what all the purpose of things are, so that may not be advisable. But that would definitely solve the problem. I'm not sure if that's the direction that you want to go, but that would solve it. So instead of a Quill instance, you'd accept a Quill instance ref, and then you just pass the Quill instance ref directly, and then you would just reference that by .current. Yeah, let's see. Yep, that's probably the best way to do that. And yeah, you could also do the function form if you wanted to, but I would probably prefer just passing the ref directly. Yep. Okay, great. I'm running low on time. We got 9 minutes and then I've got a jet. So we'll try to get through as many of these as possible. So, hey there, Freddie. Let me just read your question really quick. Yes, that was fun. I hated that. Yeah, so doing automated tests, when they're done right, I think that they can eliminate test days, but shouldn't eliminate any form of manual testing. I think that manual testing has its place, and it's very possible that you actually have manual testers already. And those people would just be able to focus on the really high impact areas. Some QA engineer like folks can just go and make sure that things are still running smoothly. But the more automated tests you write, the less of their time is working on like things that you know have been a problem in the past, and you just find the things that are really slowing them down and are really important for your company to be confident in shipping, and automate those tests, and then they can focus on other things. So yeah, good question.
And just to add to this question,
Yeah.
can you point me to any repository where I can see the tests? Because I've struggled to implement automated tests in my projects in terms of JavaScript, React, or React Native, whatever it is. I seem to get stuck at certain point of time. What needs to be done, how it needs to be done. Just wanted to look at a project where it is already implemented, some kind of live project or any open source project where there are good tests.
Yeah, sure. So I have a project. Oh, that's weird. My thing isn't working. GitHub.com, can't see dots, bookshelf. So the bookshelf app is the app that we build in Epic React, and it has a good suite of tests in there that you can take a look at. And then if you really want to learn testing, there's no better place to learn testing than testingjavascript.com. So give that a solid look, because yeah, that's I teach everything I know about testing in there. There's also some really great testing content on Epic React, but testing JavaScript really is the place to go if you really want to solidify your testing knowledge. So
Sure. I will be looking into the Epic React because I have subscribed to it. So I will check that out. Also, the testing JavaScript. Thanks for that.
sure, yeah. Is it as forbidden to have side effects run in event handlers? Oh, good question. Yeah, you can totally have side effects run in event handlers. That's totally fine. By nature, it is a side effect itself. But I typically suggest that if you can, try to have your side effects run in use effects. In particular, because I think it was in office hours, maybe last time or maybe a week ago. I showed an example where let's say that you had a side effect. Yeah, I can just show it really quick. It's right in here, actually. Here, let's get rid of all this. Yeah, so right here, right. Oh, well, that's the exercise. Let's do this one. Here we go. So right here, we're updating local storage. Here, let's look at the extra credits, actually. Extra one. There we go. So we're updating local storage anytime the name changes, but we could update local storage anytime when like handle change happens. So anytime we set that name, we could update local storage, and that would work. Totally would work. The challenge is, what if we have a set name to upper thing where we're going to say set name, and let's take a new name. and to uppercase. Okay, so now we just changed the name, and local storage is out of sync with our, with things as they are. So that's unfortunate. And so we have to paste that in here. And oh, we also now need to make a variable for this. Okay, so this is going to be whatever. And actually, oh shoot, this messed up here too, because the name is actually the old name, not the new one. So we need to create a variable for that too. Oh shoot, like it's such a pain. What you really want is you just say, anytime the name changes, I want to update local storage. And so that's why even though you have event handlers and you can do side effects in there, that's fine. I really, really advise using useEffect for your side effects. Like most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, it's just better to use useEffect because you avoid a big category of problems. So great questions. And I did go over that a little bit in a previous office hours if you want to search around to find that. Good. I'm glad that helped, Zamir. All right, we've got 3 minutes. Is the JSX transform not going to use the create element API? No, it actually is going to use a create element API. I wonder if we could find it in React at 17 here. Oh, next. Come on, unpackage. Sometimes it's super slow and it's like, wait, don't like people use this in production. Yeah, I get 500s pretty, like, I wouldn't say regularly, but like it happens. And I'm like, what the? That is very surprising to me that this happens. Okay, so maybe it's just this. All right, let's find npm im react. I need to know what version 17 is because I want to show you the create element API. I haven't actually looked at it, but I'm pretty sure I know what it'll look like. Here, let's do, we don't want production. Development, it's going to be 17 RC, whatever. Okay, create element. Here it is right there. So this is the new create element API, which is going to be part of the new JSX transform. So it's exported directly as create element as like a named export. And it's basically exactly the same. It's totally unchanged. So the new JSX transform doesn't really change the way that React elements are going to be created. It just changes the, I think the way that it works is they made a contract with the compiler to say, like, this is how we expose the create element API now. Let's take a look actually at, here, hold on a second. Let's do React JSX transform blog. Yeah, the new transform. Yeah, so this is the way that's going to work. Is it's yeah, here let's actually look at that really quick. JSX runtime. Here we go. Oh, let's look at dev. Yeah. Oh, come on. For goodness sake. My goodness. JSX runtime development. I wonder what the difference between JSX dev runtime development. That's confusing to me. Okay, here we go. So the function that is exposed is this one, JSX with validation. So it's still going to take a type. It's going to take props. Key is static children is interesting. So yeah, some things are going to be a little bit different. I'm guessing that the transform will actually take the children children argument or all the children and put it as a prop called children. So it will change the way it's compiled slightly, but it's not like fundamentally shifting the way that things work. Yeah, see, so it's still calling a function with the type and then the props. It's all, yeah, from a fundamental standpoint, it's all the same. So that was a fun little trip through 500 server errors. Just kidding. Okay, cool. If you didn't get an invoice, then send an email. Yes, thank you, Arpan. Is it just that that's the way parser deals with it? Yes, that's exactly right, Nick. Don't worry about it anymore. That's just a limitation of the parser. It's kind of like it would be like saying, why can't I do 3 multiplications for like 3 exponential, or I don't know. It's just not syntax that's supported. Yeah. Okay. Give this a look. Let's take a look with the -2 minutes I have left. Oh, that's interesting. No, we don't cover this at all. But that's an interesting approach. Yeah, if you're happy with that, then go for it. I have a feeling you'd get a ESLint warning out of this because ESLint probably wouldn't know what to do about that. Oh wait, no, because this function is just this part, right here. Yeah, you could totally do that if you like that. Then it's fine with me. You're getting some variable shadowing here that's unnecessary. You could probably just get rid of that altogether. I don't know. It's just a different way to do the same thing. I wouldn't do it that way, but you can totally do it that way. No problem. Shoot an email to support. You'll get an email. Don't worry. I promise support will get to you eventually. Support does not work on weekends, and so they're just barely getting back into things, and they will reply to you. I promise. Thank you for your patience. Okay. A bundle in the near future. Nope, we don't have any plans in the near future for anything like that. I write window.fetch just to make it more clear. I don't like using random globals in general. So yeah, I like using window dot, but you don't have to do it my way if you don't want to. Wow, everybody decided to ask the questions right when I was ready to go. Is it possible instead of copying the array to just get the previous state in the setter? Yeah, you can do that if you want to. So you'd say set here. Actually, I've got the squares right here. So yeah, you could say set squares and then previous squares, and then you do this, where this would be the previous squares. Yep, that should work exactly the same. So yeah, if you want to do it that way, that's fine. The only time I really worry about doing the function form is if, yeah, actually this is probably better because normally my rule is if my new state depends on my old state, then I use the function form. So I'm not sure why I didn't use the function form here. This is probably better. I mean, we're not going to run into any problems, but as a general rule, it's better to use the function form in case you have multiple set state calls. That way they're queued up in the right order so that you have the actual correct new state. So this is probably better. But we're not going to run into any problems with the way we have it. But thanks for bringing that up, Eric. Yeah, actually, we build the use async hook. So in the advanced, I think it's the advanced hooks, we build this use async hook. So you'll get to know that a lot. As far as like whether it's open source, I've thought about open sourcing it, and maybe I still will. I mean, it's not very big. It's not a lot. I just have it copy pasted to all of the repos. But you're generally better off just using the use mutation hook from React Query. And that's what I typically use. But I do combine use async with the use mutation hook, and we do that together in the Bookshelf app. So you can take a look at that. It's kind of fun. Okay. not transpiling with the object spread for the spread, but all other spreads do. I'm not sure I understand what you mean by this, Nick, but I gotta go. Thanks everybody for hanging out. It was fun. And yeah, let's do this again sometime, specifically on Thursday. So I'll see you on Thursday. I'm going to do a live stream here in just a second about Epic React Dev live streams. And today we're going to talk about advanced React hooks workshop. It's going to be great. So I'll see you soon. And thanks for hanging out. Stop share and stop the live stream. How do we do that? Stop live stream. Peace out. Goodbye.